Well, good Thursday evening, everyone. It is Thursday, April 13th here. Wanted to get on, do a kind of a last minute video here, looking at the potential for some severe weather tomorrow. So, Friday evening does look like it's going to be a tricky forecast, and very possibly we might see that cap that's on the atmosphere. It may hold, and we may not really get any storms at all here tomorrow. So, wanted to take a look at latest models, give kind of a 1 day outlook at what the atmosphere kind of setting up to be what models are showing us and where possibly we could get a storm and what that storm might do if it were to form. So let's take a look, jump into a couple kind of model data here from this afternoon. Let me take a look at the afternoon run here of the HRRR model. So first thing I want to do, kind of look at certainly the moisture. We've talked some about that. This would be showing tomorrow around 7 p.m. We can see pretty good, a little amount of moisture being pulled northward here. All of this moisture in here, we're showing, almost, 65, 70-degree dew points along much of this area. So certainly would be enough moisture that we could see severe weather. Again, moisture, it's going to be a little bit late arriving. It's not overly impressive, but along the dry line here, we could see 60 to mid 60-degree dew points. Let's say we were looking at an environment with maybe 70-degree dew points. I think we wouldn't have an issue or as much concern with storms firing, but it is going to be a little bit that this moisture arrives kind of last minute. If we go, let's say, we go 8 hours ahead in time, so kind of Friday, this would be, even before lunchtime, we can see that moisture is really just getting to the Dallas Fort Worth area. Those 60-degree dew points are really just making it then. So that's one of the issues, that this moisture, there is enough of it, but it arrives pretty late in the game. It's not really in place ahead of time, which would certainly mean a much more significant severe weather event. So that is one of the limiting factors that we're looking at here. And so again, we do have some moisture, but it is a little bit late arriving. I think another thing that I'll point out that I have been noticing is a little bit of this bulge along the dry line here. Not incredibly impressive here, but anytime that you do get a little bit of a bulge here, sometimes this can be a little bit of added kind of convergence where those winds behind the dry line are coming out of the west southwest ahead, maybe out of the southeast, maybe even a little bit more easterly. That can get a little bit more convergence to get those storms to really collide and sometimes be able to kind of form and break through that cap. So that's something that's worth watching tomorrow, kind of see how that really takes shape. And so again, we certainly have some moisture. It's going to be a little bit late arriving. When we look at kind of some of the severe ingredients that are in place, we certainly still have plenty of instability that's in the atmosphere. This is the energy helicity index. So this combines both shear, so those changing winds with height, along with that instability parameter. And we can see that we have values certainly sufficient for supercells and severe weather across kind of north central, North Texas, up into southern Oklahoma. So we have all of the ingredients that are in place when we look at surface-based CAPE. So that's that kind of instability that you need for thunderstorms. We've got readings of almost, 3,000 joules per kilogram here across kind of the western fringes of the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex. This is more than enough for significant severe weather. So it's not an issue of moisture or instability or wind shear being present. It's just that all the ingredients aren't quite maximized. And I think that the cap is going to be what kind of holds storms back. It's certainly going to feel like a severe weather day, just not sure that we're actually going to get those storms to fire. And I think probably some of the best ways to really see this taking shape is if we look at a couple of those soundings. Let me pull a sounding in southern Oklahoma here along I-35, and let's take a look. So again, like we looked at last night, our biggest issue in this cap is where the red line is above the dashed white line here. That's kind of this nose here. And so if air parcels are moving up the dashed white line here, they eventually get to a point where instead of it being colder above and causing that warm air to rise, it's actually already warmer above that dashed line. And so that means that those air parcels are going to kind of fizzle out. They're not going to keep expanding and going north, condensing causing or north in the atmosphere as an up, not north as a direction, but they're not going to continue to rise, condense, and create those clouds and thunderstorms. And so that's where we see that cap that's on the atmosphere is right there again in southern Oklahoma when we look at that sounding. Let's take a sounding kind of over Dallas Fort Worth here. Let's kind of choose an area maybe right around here. Again, we can still see a little bit of that capping inversion, that red line kind of to the right of the white dashed line. So we still see that cap there. Again, not incredibly strong, but certainly still present. This is at 7 p.m. So we still see the cap that's present there. And then one last sounding a little bit kind of southwest of Dallas Fort Worth. This is the area where I think if there were to be a possible storm, we see that they do kind of intersect, but we don't see that red line kind of to the right of the dashed line. So that's where the cap seems to erode the most. And we've got all of this area between these red line and the white line. This is instability. So certainly a lot of cape and instability here. We have these turning winds with height in kind of those lowest levels out of the south, almost southeast. Here at the lowest levels, southwest up above, and then more westerly above the surface. And we certainly have, again, this turning winds within these lowest 2 kilometers here. And that's typically what you need for rotating thunderstorms and certainly a tornado chance as well. So we have a lot of the ingredients in place, and it does appear that the cap might be weak enough a little bit southwest of Dallas Fort Worth, just looking at this kind of model run to where we might be able to eke out maybe a storm or two, maybe a little bit southwest of Dallas Fort Worth, probably that 5 to 7 time frame tomorrow evening and afternoon. Now, when we look at the HRRR model and actually the simulated radar, we really don't see any storms that form. So again, this is looking at 7 p.m. tomorrow, and there's some storms in really extreme South Texas that do form. But again, here over Oklahoma, Texas, Central Texas, really nothing, not even hardly a hint at a storm. So the HRRR model doesn't give you a whole lot of hope that that cap is going to break. But one other model that sometimes is worth looking at, really just because this FV3 model tends to be the most bullish, to where in even some questionable environments, it will pop out a storm. It doesn't mean that that's going to happen, but if you don't see anything on this model, you can almost rule out any chance of the storm at all. And what we do see is that it does fire that storm kind of southwest of Dallas Fort Worth around that 6 to 7 p.m. tomorrow. And so at least there is a little bit of kind of a semblance of hope there that there could be a couple storms. And I think it's going to be because the cap may be just weak enough that a storm could kind of burst through that cap. And certainly if it did, would have an all hazard severe threat that would be possible. So I think we're only going to see maybe 1 or 2, possibly no storms at all tomorrow. So certainly going to be more of a marginal day. The Storm Prediction Center, they actually removed the slight 2 out of 5 risk category for tomorrow. For North Texas, we only have this green marginal, which is a 1 out of 5 category. That yellow is moved up over much of Kansas. And so certainly less of a chance down here, but still a little bit of a threat area listed just in case we do get that, marginal storm that can burst through the cap, and certainly would have a severe threat, likely more of a large hail threat. Can't necessarily rule out a tornado, but more likely if a storm forms, brief downpour and certainly some large hail would be possible with any storm. So hopefully this is helpful. Again, it's going to be one of those kind of wait and see days. Very possibly we won't get any storms tomorrow, but I think there is a slim chance that we could see maybe one storm kind of break the cap there and take off. And right now it looks like that chance would be more likely than not probably southwest of Dallas Fort Worth, maybe Waco, a little bit west of the Waco area. So hopefully this video was helpful, and trying to keep an eye on things. Was hoping that we'd have a greater chance of maybe some storms tomorrow and more of a localized storm chase, but not sure that it'll even be worth taking a drive. So we'll see. Definitely stay informed, kind of watch the skies tomorrow. Could be a storm or two, but also may just be a clear sky and maybe a warm Friday afternoon and evening. So hope this video was helpful. Everybody have a good close to the week and certainly a good weekend to come.